Hello and welcome to Halftime on the Hudson. I'm Corey Grip, alongside Eddie Whitman. Let's start with hot takes. All I've been hearing about for the past month or so is how good Russell Westbrook and James Harden have been so far this season. Harden's 32 consecutive games with 30-plus points, which is tied for the second longest such streak in NBA history. And Russell Westbrook's 11 straight games with a triple-double, which is an NBA record, are impressive, but they are not legitimate MVP candidates. Let's start with Harden. The Rockets are 21-11 during his run of consecutive 30-point games, but many of those wins came against lackluster competition with below 500 records. Some of these wins were over the Wizards, Cavaliers, Grizzlies, Knicks, Mavericks, Suns, Pelicans, and Magic, among others. At the same token, they were unable to consistently beat the better teams in the NBA, as they lost to the Thunder, Bucks, 76ers, Blazers, and Nuggets during that same period. Harden's success is not sustainable, and we all know what Harden's reputation is in the playoffs. Harden is an excellent regular season player because of his high usage percentage and playmaking abilities, but he looks tired at times in the playoffs. Same thing for Westbrook. He burns out in the playoffs, relies too much on his athleticism, and does not seem to consistently make the big plays in the biggest moments, as his free throw percentage and field goal percentage has plummeted from his MVP season 2 years ago. The real talk should be about Giannis Antetokounmpo and Paul George. George is having a career season. He's averaging a career highs in points at 28.7, rebounds at 8, and assists at 4.1. He's also averaging over 37 points in the month of February, while also recording a 47-point triple-double against Portland. Paul George finally looks like the peak Paul George from his Pacer days, and while he is benefiting from Westbrook's more pass-first approach this season, this is the best we have ever seen of PG-13. For Giannis, I said back in October that if the Bucks were a 1 or 2 seed in the East, which they are, he would win MVP. Coach Budenholzer's presence has been noticeable as he's helped the team with Chris Middleton becoming an all-star and Giannis leading the team in points, rebounds, and assists. Giannis is shooting 58% from the field, which means he's nearly unstoppable inside of the arc. Giannis will have to fight off Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors, but if he does, Milwaukee will have home court for the playoffs, and Giannis will have his first MVP.
Russell Westbrook is the ultimate competitor, a great teammate, and a triple-double machine. But for some reason, many NBA fans hate him and disrespect him. Westbrook is no doubt a top 2 point guard in the NBA and is definitely a top 10 player. People always say the same thing, that he's quote-unquote selfish and he's a quote-unquote stat patter. That was the old Russell Westbrook, because this season he has really changed. This season he's averaging 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists, and also 2 steals. But he's still not being talked enough now in the NBA world. Yes, his scoring is down this season, but he's making all of his teammates better, and the stats back that up. A true elite point guard is a guy who makes his teammates better. This season, his teammates Paul George, Steven Adams, Jeremy Grant, and Dennis Schroeder are all having the best seasons of their careers. Westbrook is not a stat patter, he's a winner. He's an elite passer and an elite rebounder. The Thunder have also won 82% of their games when he records a triple-double. So now as the playoffs approach, the Thunder are sitting at 3rd place in the West. And I think they're the only team in the Western Conference that has a chance at beating the Warriors. So stop hitting on Russell Westbrook, because he's leading his team to wins, and the Thunder are coming.
With pitchers and catchers reporting and several big-time free agents still available, it is time for baseball season. Free agency has become analytics-driven, which explains why many players are still free agents, including stars Bryce Harper, not Manny Machado, just signed. But Luis Severino did not have that problem, as he signed a 4-year, $40 million extension with the New York Yankees. Severino looked like an ace for the first half of the season last year and pitched very well in 2017. But the playoffs and second halves of both seasons have been his demise. In the first half last season, his ERA was hovering under 2, which was almost the best in baseball, while also being amongst the best in baseball in strikeouts and wins. He finished the season, however, with an ERA over 3 and struggled with location of his pitches and fatigue. That all could be behind him, as Sevy has changed his diet for the better. He's gotten rid of sweets, fast food, and almost all fried food from his diet, and has already noticed a difference, feeling 12 to 15 pounds lighter. He also has more energy for training, especially running and recovering. This difference in his diet will allow Sevy to have more energy and continue his first half dominance. Severino's slider is one of the most unhittable in the game, and mixed with a high 90s fastball and a dropping changeup, he has the arsenal to put fear into any major league hitter. When I changed my diet, I noticed a huge change in my own recovery and energy levels. So if it can work for an ordinary person, I can't imagine what it would do for a professional athlete. I believe Severino will win his first Cy Young and have the stamina to help lead the Yankees back to their first World Series since 2009.
The college basketball world was left in shock last week when Zion Williamson busted through his shoe and sprained his knee. In one of the biggest college basketball games in recent history, he only played the first 30 seconds against North Carolina. He has also not played the past 2 games against Syracuse and Virginia Tech, but he's expected to return to the court soon. After his injury, many people decided to say that Zion Williamson should end his Duke career after that little minor injury and get ready for the NBA draft. The thought that people saying he should end his college career and quit on his teammates is absolutely absurd. Yes, it was a scary play and nobody wants to see him get hurt, but a little scared does not mean you shut your season down. The media is trying to influence Zion Williamson and what he should do, and it's flat out wrong. Zion has made it clear that he loves college and he's loved playing at Duke. He also said that if he was allowed to go to the NBA straight out of high school, that he still would have went to Duke. There are so many reasons why Zion Williamson is making the right decision to keep playing. Number one, he's playing for arguably the best coach in the history of basketball in Coach K. If you've watched Zion's season over the course of the year, it is obvious that he's improving in all aspects of the game. People have to remember he is still only 18 years old, and Coach K is the perfect coach to teach him the ins and outs of the game. Number two, he'd be quitting on his teammates, coaches, and the school if he chose to stop playing. He is viewed as a great teammate, so I'm sure that Zion never even considered quitting. And number three, he is still so young, and going to college helps him both on and off the court. He's learning independence, and that matters as he will soon enter the NBA, which is a league of all grown men. It really is pathetic that people in the media say Zion should end his Duke career and quit on his teammates. So shout out to you, Zion, because it speaks a lot to your character that you 100% want to help your team win the national championship. When we return, Corey and I will be discussing college basketball. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're now going to get into some college basketball talk. First off, Corey, I just want to hear your first team All-American in college basketball this year.
All right, so we're looking at Cassius Winston, Zion Williamson. It's kind of obvious, right? Marcus Howard, Grant Williams, and Ethan Happ. What do you think?
Mine's pretty similar. I have a few similar players, actually 2 of them, Zion Williamson and then Marcus Howard from Marquette. And on my side, I have R.J. Bear, also from Duke, Ryu Hachimura from Gonzaga, and then John Moran from Murray State. So I guess 2 mid-majors, but they're 2 of the bigger mid-majors.
I mean, I think it's like kind of obvious, right? Like Zion is clearly like the best player in America. I mean, forget the injury. I mean, like he was playing at such a high level. Marcus Howard, only player in college basketball with 2 games over 45. I mean, he put 53 on the road at Creighton. Like you can't, in regulation, that's impressive. Ethan Happ, not getting enough respect. Come on, like he's leading his team in every single statistical category, and without him, they're not a top 25 team. They might not even have 10 wins. Give him the respect he deserves, even though he can't shoot free throws.
Yeah, I mean, obviously all the guys on our list, both lists, are obviously great players because they're obviously the best players in the country. So going off that list, I assume your player of the year is on that list. So who's your player of the year?
Absolutely. Cassius Winston is my player of the year. Listen, I don't want to jump on the Zion. I love Zion, but everyone's going to pick him. So you gotta pick somebody else, someone different. Cassius Winston's averaging over 19 points a game. If you know anything about college basketball, that to go on the road without their best big men and beat a top 10 Michigan team, impressive. Let's not also forget Cassius Winston. Some of his best games of the year, he's played his best on the road. 27 at Michigan, 23 at Iowa, 25 at Ohio State. This guy plays big in the moment. And as much as I love Zion, he hasn't played his best games on the road, let's face it. So you got to look at everything. And without Winston, who's more valuable to Duke? Duke is competitive without Zion. Without Winston, they're not very good. So I'm looking at that as well in my player of the year consideration.
Yeah, I'm actually going with Zion. I mean, I think his importance is really starting to show as they lost on the road at Virginia Tech without him.
They lost by like 4.
They still lost. But Zion, I mean, everyone said that coming into college, I think everyone thought he was just a guy that threw down crazy dunks, but it's crazy to see at his big body how he moves. He can move through tight spots and get wherever he wants. If his jump shot can get going like the next level, I feel like he's going to be an unstoppable player. But in college this year, he's really been a man among boys, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree with you. I think this guy is the best player in college alongside Winston. And once he gets that jump shot, watch out NBA. Like, this guy's going to be a star.
So we'll move on next to Coach of the Year. Corey, who do you got for Coach of the Year?
You know, before the season, I'm not going to lie, like I was ripping on Purdue hard. And, you know, they had a really good run last year, best senior class in school history. They obviously all graduated. The reason why I'm saying Purdue is they're a top 15 squad right now, and they have a star in Carson Edwards. Now, outside of him, they really don't have much, which is why I'm saying Painter's Coach of the Year. For them to be where they are, and a lot of people didn't think they'd make the tournament, and let alone be a top 4 seed. So I don't see how he can't win Coach of the Year with all the talent he lost, and with really only one good college player on his team. I mean, he's just making it work with what he has, and that's why he's Coach of the Year.
Yeah, he's definitely been a great coach for years now, and probably one of the best in the country. So I'm going to go with a young coach, Will Wade. He's at LSU. He only got there a few years ago, and they were, I think, number 24 to start the season. They're up to around 13 now, and the thing is, I mean, I know the Coach of the Year is a regular season award, but in March Madness, guards usually are the teams who win, and Tremont Waters is definitely one of the best point guards in the country. He reminds me a lot of Shabazz Napier, who was at UConn a few years ago, but I think Will Wade has done a great job. He's recruited really well at LSU, because LSU really hasn't been a basketball school in recent years, and he's really starting to get that program to pick up, so he's doing a great job this year.
Leave it to you to always make a UConn reference when we talk about college basketball.
That's true.
Only you could bring that up. Only you could bring that up. Oh, man.
So next, players who draft their NBA, who boosted their NBA draft stock. Who do you have for that?
I'm going to say DeAndre Hunter of Virginia, and the reason I say that is because a lot of people coming into the season were saying maybe he's a late lottery pick, first-round pick. He's really boosted his stock. I mean, you know, at Virginia, it's all about the team. And despite that being about the team, he still leads the team in points, field goal percentage. He's a really long, lengthy wing who can really shoot the ball. And, you know, when he gets to the NBA, this is probably the first player Tony Bennett's ever had that can be like a solid NBA player. And he's just gotten better throughout the season, and he's really played well in that system. And I think he'll thrive at the NBA level.
Yeah, and definitely, and considering how slow they play, the fact that he averages 15 points it probably seems like a little more than less than it should be, because 15 is a lot in the pace of play they go.
Can you imagine if he played for Duke? He'd be averaging like 25 points a game. This guy is a star in the making, and I think it's partly because of Tony Bennett's coaching and the culture he's built at Virginia.
So my guy, John Moran, he was a little bit under the radar. I mean, for a mid-major guy as a sophomore to move up to being a top 3 pick in the draft, which he's probably going to be, is insane. He was not recruited by any Power 5 schools. He had no big-time offers. Ended up at Murray State in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee, and sure enough, as a sophomore, he's going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. So. And he's legit. He can shoot. He can drive. He can pass. I think he leads the country in assists per game. So I think he's really impressed me. I think he probably went from a low lottery pick to a top 3 pick this year.
I think my whole thing with Morant is I think he has to like bulk up a little bit. He's a little skinny, but like that comes in time. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys in the NBA like Anthony Davis. Remember, he was so skinny coming out of Kentucky, and now he's built. But I look at Morant and. In the NBA now, it's all about athleticism a lot of the time. And he's a freak of an athlete, averaging a double-double. I mean, this guy is you're definitely right, top 5 pick right now, and he's playing at a really high level. And if they get to the tournament, then we'll really get to see what he's made of against better competition.
I know scouts have said he's very similar athletically to Russell Westbrook, but he also has a jump shot. So if that could ever
he's already better than Westbrook.
Okay, well, if that's ever the case for Morant, he's going to be a special player in the NBA. So we'll move on out of that to sleeper teams, maybe some teams who are at the top of the rankings but could make some noise in March Madness.
I think Texas Tech is getting hot at the right time. You know, defensively, I think, you know, to win in March, you got to play really good team defense, but you also have to be able to score. Jared Culver is another guy that's really boosted his stock this year. Maybe like late first-round pick. Now he's considered in the lottery pick as a true freshman. He's a stud. But I don't think Chris Beard gets enough attention. I mean, what he's done at Texas Tech, they don't get these high-profile recruits. But he's kind of like Virginia in the sense that the team defense they play, the ability to slow the pace down, and they've been making threes better. I mean, I saw them blow out Kansas, and everyone said Kansas, oh, they're great. Well, they are great. But Texas Tech is really starting to get going offensively. And they're going to be a team to watch out for. Another team, too, is Houston. And the reason I say Houston is because, listen, they lost a heartbreaking game last year in the tournament to Michigan. They have a lot of the guys on that team coming back. They're 26-1. They're top 10 in the country. And their best player, Corey Davis, is shooting close to 50% from 3 the last 2 games. Another team that's getting hot at the right time. So watch out for the Cougars.
All right, those are definitely 2 really good teams to look at. I see 2 teams. First, Buffalo. I mean, they were up near the top 10 at one point during the season, led by C.J. Massenberg. I mean, many people may not know who he is, but he's for real. He can play. He averages over 20 points, and I'm sure he'll get a shot at the NBA. But Buffalo, as we know, last year they beat Arizona in the first round. They beat the number 1 pick in the draft, DeAndre Ayton, and it's pretty much the same team that's back. So I think they can make some noise and find their way into the Sweet 16.
How could I not forget? They ruined my bracket last year.
That's true. Same to me. And another team I got, Louisville. Chris Max in his first year at Louisville. I mean, they've had a little bit of an up and down season. Of course, everybody knows that terrible loss they had to Duke. They're up 20 with like 10 minutes left and end up losing. But Louisville wasn't expected to be much this year, and they have their one guy, Jordan Nwora. He's a pretty good player. I think he might make an All-American team. He's had a great year. So I think those two teams, just because they had that one go-to guy who can go for 30 points, I think either of those teams can make a little bit of a run.
First of all, you're completely wrong about Louisville. Louisville, for me, they're not a very good team. Like, they don't, like, Moore is good, but, like, he's not consistent. They don't have the go-to guy. Like, they're a good, solid defensive team, but this isn't their year. They'll make the tournament and they'll lose in the first round because they don't have the talent to get by with just one guy. Like, they got a bunch of scrappy young guys, and that you got to respect that to an extent. But it comes down to talent in the tournament, and they just don't have enough talent yet.
I agree they don't have a ton of talent, but I'm just saying the one guy they have in Nwora, he can always win them a game if he gets hot. So say he has his best game in the tournament, then they can make a run, maybe win a game or two. I mean, that's why they're a sleeper team. You're not expecting them to win, but maybe they could. So lastly, Final Four picks. So, Corey, give me your Final Four picks and who's going to win it at the end.
Gee, man, why do you got to put me on the spot? Geez, Duke, obviously, come on. Like, Zion's coming back, so they're making the tournament with Zion, and they honestly have enough talent to make a run anyway. I really like Tennessee. I know they've been struggling the past couple games against Kentucky and LSU, but they're a senior-led team, and they'll know what they'll ramp it up in the next couple weeks and get ready. I really like Michigan State. Once they get Nick Ward back, Cassius Winston, like I said, is my player of the year. Special team. Coach Izzo always has his teams ready to play for March, and I think they're due for a good run after getting knocked down the tournament early the past couple years. And I love Mark Few and Gonzaga. I love Ryu. I love Brandon Clark, Josh Perkins, another senior-led team that knows what it takes to win in March. So there they are right there. And I think to win it all, I can't go against my team. I can't go against Duke. Come on. If Zion's healthy, they're winning it all. They have the best team when he's on the floor.
I'm going to agree with that. I think if Duke's healthy, they're winning it all. But in my Final Four, I do have Duke. I also have their rival, North Carolina. I think they've been playing really well lately. So I think they're on the rise. They probably have as much talent as any team in the country. I mean, they're a very veteran-led team, a lot of seniors, and a good mix of like seniors and freshmen, which I kind of like. Gonzaga, I'm going to agree with you on that. And I have Kentucky in the Final Four. I think P.J. Washington has really improved since last year. I thought last year he was a little bit raw, didn't really have a jump shot, and he's really developed his game. But I'm going to agree with you. I think Duke is going to be taking it all in the end.
Sounds pretty good, man. I can't disagree. Obviously, we both agree on that one. When we come back, John Rohr will be here with Marist athlete Abby Gregg on our new segment, Hear Me Rohr. Stay tuned.
This morning at 6:30, Studio A's John Osborne and I braved the frigid 15-degree temperatures and ventured down to the banks of the Hudson River to check out one of our school's most successful athletic programs. 6 days a week, well before most of us are awake, some of Marist's most dedicated athletes can be found hard at work inside the Marist Boathouse and on the Hudson River. The Marist women's rowing team will begin their spring season next month in Clemson, South Carolina. This year, the team is looking to capture their 11th conference title and first since 2013. Last week, the Foxes were picked as favorite to win the MAC in the conference's annual preseason poll. The team has had incredible success with the MAC championships. In fact, they haven't finished below second since the year 2000. Joining us now in studio to tell us more is senior rower Abby Gregg. So your twin sister Maddie's also on the team. What's it like competing alongside your sister?
It's really fun going to school with your twin sister and having her there, but most of the time in crew they like to take twins and make them a pair, or at least put them in the same boat, because the whole point of rowing is to be like the 8 girls or the 4 girls to be synchronized. So it's pretty much an advantage most of the time to go to school with your twin sister and row with her.
Awesome. So pivoting off of that, was the decision to come to Marist one you guys kind of made together, or one that you just kind of landed on separately?
Leading up to our decision to go to Marist, we did not want to go together, but we had certain circumstances that are offers where we either went together or we didn't, so we decided to go together.
Cool. So aside from MAC championships, as we mentioned, what are some of the team's other goals this season?
The MAC championship is pretty much like our main goal. That's what we usually focus on the most. I think the other goals would be just to do well within the races before that, and right now probably to stay healthy because our whole team is getting sick because we're indoors a lot. So.
And then individually, what are some of your goals for the season, like PRs or anything?
My goal right now is to get a personal record on my 2K coming up on Wednesday. So that's the main goal right now, and then the next goal is to maintain my seat for where I've been sitting.
Awesome. And then how can people kind of follow along with Crew this season?
Like how can you keep up with
it?
Yeah. We live stream our races on Row 2K, I think, so you can watch our races through that, or you can come to them, but that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
So.
And then any plans for after graduation?
After graduation, I think I'm going to teach at my hometown, and I'm going to teach high school math.
Awesome. That's all we have time for today. Back to Eddie and Corey at the desk.
Thanks, John. Now on to our games of the week. For my game of the week, we're just going to analyze it. Duke at Syracuse. What a great game. A lot of emotions in the Carrier Dome. Jim Boeheim, obviously innocently killed a pedestrian, so there was a lot of emotions during that game. And you could feel it. Duke didn't have Zion, so there was a lot of storylines coming into this game. I was really impressed with R.J. Barrett and what he did for the team to just carry them on his back. Alex O'Connell, extremely impressive. I loved the defense by Duke to go on the road in front of the most people ever in the Carrier Dome. Very impressive. I think Syracuse, they're just a little inconsistent, and they've been like that the past couple of years. They have a really good team, and they usually seem to pick it up by the end of February, early March. So I expect Syracuse to make a potential run in the tournament. But like I said, with Duke, without Zion, Duke is still one of the best teams in the country. And though they lost to Virginia Tech on Tuesday, they are still a threat to make a run.
On Saturday will be one of the best college basketball games of the entire season. Whenever there's a top 10 matchup, it's bound to have a ton of excitement. Just about 2 weeks ago, Kentucky dominated Tennessee 86-69. Tennessee will be on their home court and definitely looking for revenge. There's a lot of talent in this game on both teams, but I think this game will come down to one matchup, and the player who has a better game will win the game for their team. For Tennessee is Grant Williams, who's putting together another great season, averaging 19 points and 8 rebounds per game. For Kentucky, it's P.J. Washington, who's averaging 15 points and 8 rebounds per game. I think this rematch will be much closer than the first matchup, but in the end, I think P.J. Washington will lead the Wildcats to victory with a close 77-72 win on the road. That's all we have for this week. I'm Eddie Whitman. He's Corey Grip. We'll see you next time.